Do you feel like every time you go to solo or create a melody, you always end up just kind of falling into the same habits, playing the same things, using the same shapes? All the solos start to really sound alike. You want to break that habit and make your solos more creative, more original, more unique. So this is a simple trick that I share with my students, and it's really fun to do, and it just gets you thinking more creatively immediately, and just gets you playing things that you may not normally play in your solos. One thing to mention is it's totally normal as a guitar player to have that happen. I think it's common for pretty much every single guitar player. Even if you are Eddie Van Halen, I'm sure he tends to stick to some of the same stuff that he does when he solos or improvises. So the fun exercise that I do with my students to, again, get you thinking more creatively and play stuff that you wouldn't normally play is to actually restrict your playing and restrict what you have at your disposal for improvisation. So instead of maybe doing the same scale runs or the same pentatonic shapes or just the same licks that you tend to always use, you want to restrict your playing down to almost nothing, and you really have to think creatively of what you can do with it. So the first example, which is probably my favorite one, is have to improvise a solo with one string. So I'm going to do an example here. I have a backing track in the key of B minor, and we're going to use the second string and only the second string. So since it's in minor, it is good to also know your minor scale across the string. It also makes you kind of approach scales differently, seeing them in that more kind of linear style, almost like a piano versus a typical guitar shape. So doing this, you can't use any of your pentatonic stuff at all. You have one string to use, and then depending on how many frets you have, you can continue up to the second octave. But that's all you have to use. So you can do whatever you want with it. You can do slides and bends and hammer-ons and pull-offs and tapping and whammy bar. You could try to make it, the goal is to try to make it sound as interesting as possible and to make it sound like a great guitar solo, even though you only have one string. So I'm going to give you an example of that with a backing track. I'm going to only use the second string. I'm going to try to make it sound as interesting as possible, and let's see how that sounds. If you recognize that backing track, that's the Comfortably Numb style backing track that I made for my Jingle Bells classic rock version. In case you haven't seen it, you can check it out there. So as you can see, I'm trying to create an interesting solo. I'm trying to make it sound really good, but I only have one string to use. So it immediately makes me start to play things and to just think totally different than I normally would. Maybe certain scale shapes that I would normally stick to, I can't use anymore. I can't do any scale runs or anything like that. Obviously, if you're gonna like record a guitar solo or perform, you don't wanna like restrict yourself to one string, but the idea is to just try it out so that you can get new ideas for your playing and add those into the stuff that you normally do. So another example that I'll quickly give is maybe if we do stick to like a pentatonic scale, maybe if you're newer to soloing, you can use a scale that you're familiar with, but maybe only use a very small part of it. So again, I'm going to be in B minor just for the same backing track, and I'll be in the second position for the pentatonic scale, and I'm only going to use 4 notes. So I'm going to be on the first and second string at the 10th fret and the 12th fret for both strings. and that's all I can use. Now again, you have to improvise a solo, try to make it sound as interesting as possible. Don't have it sound like you are restricted. Try to come up with a really nice sounding guitar solo. So you have to think creatively, and you have to try to really see what you can do with the notes instead of having the entire fretboard at your disposal. And the tendency a lot of the time is to try to use the entire thing. Sometimes you don't have to. So let's see how it sounds with only 4 notes of the pentatonic. So that's just a quick example of maybe what I would do with only those 4 notes. I'm going to try to use bends, and I'm going to try to use all the techniques I can think of to really make it sound as interesting as possible. Maybe you would do a lot more with it. Maybe you would do less and really stick to the melody, but it's really fun to just restrict yourself to maybe just a few notes, 1 string, and you can come up with restrictions of your own. Those are just the 2 that I use with my students a lot. And again, it just is to get you thinking outside of the box and just kind of add some new variety into your playing. If you found that helpful, please let me know in the comments below, and hit the like button and subscribe for more lesson videos. Thanks guys, and keep up the practice.